topic and presentation is on a comparative review of nanoparticle-based treatments, comparing that to traditional treatments for glioblastoma multiforme. In my presentation, I'll be going over what glioblastoma multiforme is, the current treatments, challenges faced by current treatments, how nanoparticles can overcome these challenges, and evidence from preclinical and clinical trials, followed by the limitations of nanoparticles. Firstly, what is glioblastoma multiforme, or GBM for short? Well, GBM is one of the most aggressive forms of brain cancer, and it arises from the astrocytes, which are these star-like glial cells that support and protect your neurons. It's typically located in the cerebral hemisphere, but it can spread to your spinal cord and other brain areas. GBM is more common in males than females, and it is observed to be more common within older individuals. GBM makes up about 40% of all primary brain tumors, meaning brain tumors originate from the brain. And each year, about 12,000 cases are diagnosed in the US and 300,000 globally. So symptoms of GBM can include nausea and vomiting, headaches, blurred vision, memory loss, reduced sensitivity to touch, and seizures. The current standard treatment for GBM first starts off with surgery, where surgeon tries to remove as much of the tumor as possible, followed by radiation and oral chemotherapy using the drug temozolomide. But even with our current treatment, the 5-year survival rate and survival time for GBM is very low. Even compared to other cancers, it is very low. It's less than 5%. And the median overall survival time is about 12 to 15 months. This is due to the difficulty in treating GBM and the nature of GBM. So GBM is intratumoral heterogeneous, meaning that within each tumor cell, there's a diverse subpopulation of cancer cells, meaning that within each tumor, each cancer cell can have different structures, different mutations, and different sensitivity to treatment. In addition, GBM is highly infiltrative, meaning it spreads very quickly to surrounding brain tissue. This makes removing all the tumor virtually almost impossible, and residual cancer cells may remain, leading to recurrences of GBM. And there are also biological barriers, like the blood-brain barrier, that serves to impede drug delivery to tumor sites. In a healthy brain, the blood-brain barrier is there acting like a filter to filter out pathogens and toxins from entering the brain. But in GBM, they can stop drugs from entering the tumor sites in effective concentrations, which minimizes its efficacy. Nanoparticles are a way to overcome these challenges, specifically nanoparticle drug delivery systems. These delivery systems are typically made of nanoparticles about 10 to nanometers in size. In comparison, a typical average red blood cell is about 6 to 8 micrometers, making these nanoparticles thousands of times smaller than the red blood cells. These nanoparticles can also be modified with ligands to actually target tumors, and they can also deliver multiple treatments at once. For example, they can deliver both a chemotherapy and a gene silencing treatment. And before we move on to preclinical and clinical trials, I'd like to just quickly take a step back and use an analogy to better explain what I've just discussed so far. So I would like everyone to just imagine that I'm like the GBM tumor cancer cell, right? I live in a neighborhood, that's the tumor, and I live in a gated neighborhood. And the gates of the neighborhood, that's a stand-in for the blood-brain barrier. Whenever I order something from Amazon, which Amazon in this case would be serving as a stand-in for the nanoparticle drug delivery system, when I order something from Amazon, like a massage gun recently, it's a treatment. So I obviously need to give the delivery instructions to my neighborhood. There's a gate code. Every resident in my neighborhood receives a gate code. And this gate code is like the ligand, which codes the nanoparticles. Without the gate code and without delivery instructions, the delivery man won't know where to go, right? Not only that, within my neighborhood, it's very diverse. So there's me. My neighbor is an old guy who really likes dogs, so he orders a lot of dog products. And the guy living across the street from me has a cat, so he wants cat products. So the Amazon truck, when they come to deliver stuff to us, it can be loaded with both the cat products, dog products, and my massage gun. Not only that, my neighborhood, the development company for my neighborhood is trying to expand my neighborhood, which is like its infiltrative nature. The neighborhood is trying to expand into different parts of the region, which is currently right now just grasslands and a little bit of forest. And yeah, that's just a quick analogy to explain how nanoparticles can overcome these challenges and what GBM is, using a very mundane analogy. So now I'll be just talking about the evidence from preclinical and clinical trials. Just a quick overview of what preclinical and clinical trials mean. Preclinical are the early stages of research for a treatment. These are basically typically done with animal models and not humans, just to see if it's safe to even use and the mechanisms behind it. Then it moves on to clinical trials, different phases with increasing patient population, just to test dosage and the treatment effect. The first preclinical trial I'll be focusing on is a synthetic nanoprotein particle made at the University of Michigan. This synthetic protein nanoparticle was designed to cross the blood-brain barrier and enter the GBM tumor and silence the STAT3 gene using an siRNA. The reason why we're trying to silence the STAT3 gene is because the STAT3 gene helps facilitate cell growth, and in GBM it's overexpressed, causing it to rapidly grow. The siRNA goes in and just messes with how the mRNA carries the STAT3 gene blueprints to produce the STAT3 gene protein. This was injected into the bloodstream of mice who had GBM tumors surgically implanted in them. The results of this was that in the treated mice, the STAT3 protein had a significant reduction compared to untreated cells, showing that the nanoparticles were successful in crossing the blood-brain barrier and entering tumor sites and delivering their therapeutic payloads. In the treated mice, it also showed regressed tumor growth, and the treated mice were also protected against tumor regrowth, meaning that the STAT3 gene was successfully silenced. Moving on to clinical trials, the first one we'll be discussing is nanotherm. This was an iron oxide nanoparticle that was injected directly into patients with GBM. So they had undergone surgery, and the nanoparticle was directly injected into the tumor sites. Nanotherm worked by generating heat when exposed to alternating magnetic waves, which is that image above there, the guy sitting, being exposed to those waves. This generates heat, which kills tumor cells and weakens them to radiation damage. Patients were also treated with radiation therapy. Through a combination of treatments, the median overall survival time for the patients increased to 13.4 months as opposed to 6 months for untreated patients. The treatment was generally well tolerated, but transient edema was observed, meaning that there was bodily fluid buildup, likely caused by the heat from nanotherm. And nanotherm served as one of the earliest clinical translations of nanoparticle-based treatments in GBM, demonstrating its delivery feasibility, its safety, and its efficiency in humans as an increased survival time. Moving on, we'll be talking about Nu-0129. This was a spherical nucleic acid with a gold nanoparticle base that housed an siRNA to silence the BCL2L12 gene. Essentially, the BCL2L12 gene when overexpressed in GBM, reduces programmed cell death, so cells don't die as much. And this was injected into humans 24 hours prior to surgery. The post-surgical analysis of the tumor showed a significant nanoparticle accumulation within the tumor, meaning that it was able to cross the blood-brain barrier and enter tumor sites, and it showed a reduction in the BCL2L12 expression, meaning that it was able to successfully offload its therapeutic agents to silence the gene. The study was a phase 0 study, meaning that it was testing more the safety and delivery proof of the nanoparticle and not more of its efficiency. And finally, we'll be talking about Algolex. This was a gallium-based nanoparticle. It served as a radiosensitizer, meaning that it improved the effectiveness of radiation therapy. When exposed to ionizing radiation, the gallium core of the nanoparticle will produce something called reactive oxygen species, which helps destroy DNA within the cells. This trial was done in 2 phases. The first phase of the trials was testing the recommended dosage and to see if it can even cross the blood-brain barrier into tumor sites. And the second phase was testing the efficiency of the nanoparticle. The phase 1 trials have concluded, and it showed that Algolex was tolerated up to the highest tested dosage, which was 100 milligrams per kilograms, and was effectively able to reach the tumor sites. However, the phase 2 studies are still undergoing, with results anticipated to release in 2027. Due to their early promising results, the FDA granted the Algolex a fast track designation for treating GBM, which highlighted its significant potential impact and promising early results. That said, nanoparticles have their own limitations. First of all, these trials face patient scarcity. There's just not enough patients with GBM. GBM is a very rare type of cancer, there's about 300,000 cases each year. It happens about every 3 in 100,000 people. So there's a very small population because of its aggressive nature and its high mortality rate. Patients are often too sick to undergo these trials. So most, even if a nanoparticle treatment had a lot of promise in the preclinical trials, they typically stop between the phase 1 and 2 stage due to the lack of patient population. Another limitation will be its high cost. Nanoparticles cost a lot to produce, research, and manufacture. And there's a complex regulatory constraints that nanoparticles face. Nanoparticles are often listed as both a combination are listed as a combination drug, meaning they have to meet requirements for both drug-like and device-like requirements to be approved for further clinical trials and for general population usage. However, these limitations could be somewhat overcome with the GBM Agile trial platform. This is a global trial platform for testing GBM treatments. It allows researchers to pull together patients and resources to find out which treatments are best for them. This helps significantly reduce the cost of GBM nanoparticle research, and it maximizes the already low patient population for GBM. So in conclusion, nanoparticles can help cover challenges that traditional treatment for GBM face. They can offer greater control, and they can do multiple treatments at once and enhance already existing treatments as shown with the preclinical and clinical trials. However, they're limited by their high cost, complex regulatory constraints, and lack of large-scale human trials. Even with these limitations, because of the promising early results of GBM, it's not a matter of if, but when nanoparticles are used in treating GBM. Thank you.
Menno?
Kind of going on where you left off here in your conclusion, and I guess I should back up by saying thank you for the ways that you explained this incredibly complex topic. And I especially loved your analogy. Having taught you for a couple of years, I just find the way that your brain works so fascinating, and I always love to see the connections in seemingly sort of disparate areas that you're able to pull together. So well done there. But I'm wondering, sort of with, as you were talking about at the end, one of the barriers is sort of getting people connected to doctors and researchers and the oncologists who are carrying this out. Have you found anything in your research where there are groups of researchers who are, or networks where people can kind of reach out and say, hey, you know, am I a candidate for this kind of trial, or how are people trying to maybe get patients in touch with doctors earlier on?
So unfortunately, in my research, that was not an avenue I focused on, but I would assume that because of the low population of the of people with GBM, whenever a case arises, maybe they're, depending on how sick they are or how far along they are within of the cancer, it might be researchers might reach out to them to ask them to participate in their studies. But apart from that, I'm not really sure.
Are there specific universities that are kind of leading the way on this? Or?
I believe, at least with New 0129, that was developed at Northwestern University, and in the preclinical trials with the synthetic protein nanoparticles, that was developed at University of Michigan. But most of the people who are heading nanoparticles in treating GBM are biotech companies because they have a profit motive. AlgoX, being one of them, that was a French biotech company called NH Therm. And MacForce was the one that developed nanotherm. And they were based in Berlin.
Is there any kind of global collaboration between the companies to get like the bigger sample size that you need?
There is a global trial platform, but in terms of collaboration, I'm not so sure. That was not part of my research that I researched into.
I have a second question. Like, what inspired you to research this? It's so technically difficult.
It was just first intellectual curiosity. I'm very interested in the engineering field, and I wasn't really sure what to do with engineering in terms of like research topics. Then one of my cousins who was studying this, I was like, hey, well, he wasn't studying specifically nanoparticle treatments in GBM. He was just studying nanoparticles. He was like, hey, this might be an interesting avenue for you, and that's how I started on this.
That's very interesting. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
at the beginning, you said it's more common in older males. Is there, do you know if it's associated with like head trauma? Are you more genetically predisposed to have, like, what is the cause?
There is currently no clear cause for it, but it's observed to be, there might be a genetic component to it. So if you have a family history of GBM, you're more likely to develop it. And some researchers have proposed that there might, if you've been exposed to a lot of radiation typically towards your head, you might also be more susceptible to developing it. And I know Mr. Mitchell will probably comment on the cell phone usage, and that may be causing the GBM. There's no evidence for that currently, but they're still researching into it.
And questions that we've already talked about a little bit. What are these nanoparticles made of, and what happens to them after they deliver the drug?
All right. So what they're made of depends on really, they have a very versatile composition. They can be made of a lot of stuff. Their core can be made of gold or gallium, as we saw before. And in terms of what happens to them after they're used, most of them are biodegradable, so your body just naturally consumes them and flushes them out through your urine or fecal matter. Others, which are not, typically are just reside as residuals in your brain. They're not harmful, but they're just there.
Hey Eric, how does the drug bind itself to the nanoparticle?
Excellent question. It uses ligands to navigate to, so there are receptors on the tumors that express certain proteins that the ligands attach to, and that's how they usually cross over and attach to the tumors to be absorbed.
So you say it's not a matter of if, but when. What's your best guess on the when? It seems to me there's a lot of barriers between this becoming.
Right, there is a lot of barriers. I would like to first preface that nanoparticle, when I was talking about nanoparticles, it's a drug delivery system. This can be used for a variety of diseases. So neurodivergent diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's are being tested with nanoparticles. Even your vaccines have nanoparticles in them. I'm sure everyone here has taken a COVID vaccine. Those have nanoparticles in them from Pfizer, Moderna. They all have nanoparticles in them. In terms of treating GBM, because of low population, I don't think it's anytime soon. There's just not enough patients to pull together for large-scale research, large-scale trials. And the complex loops that nanoparticles have to hop through to even be tested may also impede their development time. So in terms of use for the general population, I don't see it happening very soon, maybe in a few decades.
Okay. Your lifetime?
My lifetime. Yours too.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you gave this number of 300,000, and said this is not a cancer that is as widespread. But are they seeing an increased incidence in this?
In developed nations, yes, it's more common in older individuals. So as people grow older, they're more likely to develop it. So in developed nations, where people typically live longer, we've seen more cases of GBM arise.
Okay. When you are giving examples or studies, findings, it would be helpful if you would tell us the site or the study on your slide.
Most of my studies came from the National Institute of Health, just medical journals, published by universities and biotech companies.
Just the general rules.
but
So
I'll
when we're
bring
looking
them
at
back
it, we
next
know
time.
where you're getting it from, okay?
Yes, sir.
I would like to, like Mrs. Barnes stated, the analogy that you provided is really helpful when you have audiences with varied knowledge of your topic, like myself. So I like that you did that, broke it down. I also liked how you could clearly speak on the topic without having to read off anything, and so it clearly shows that you know the information and can articulate it both in very scientific terms as well as layman's terms, so good job on that. The question I had is, with these nanoparticles, how much is that in the broader scheme of nanotechnology in general being a more current field used to study a variety of things?
Can you?
Well, I've heard of that term, like nanotechnology, being used in a lot of different studies of whatever, and I'm just wondering, like, how much is that like a wave of what's current in different types of scientific research?
Well, what I do know is that nanoparticles are obviously being used to specifically targets. The delivery system is specifically used to target like specific cells and stuff, and you can observe it different treatments even at once, especially like neurodivergent diseases like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. They use nanoparticles a lot to test specific treatments on the cells and observe if like preventative or like curative treatments at once. Sorry, this part of this topic that part of my topic I haven't really researched into, so I can't provide a concise answer.
Here.
No, I agree. I think there has been a lot, so it's not just like as it applies to biology, right? Like I always think about like computer chips or
Right.
little
Right.
chips in your
Oh,
phone, like
okay,
all of
sorry.
that.
I misunderstood
Like
it.
a big field of
Nanotechnology too.
different fields emphasizing this type of approach.
Well, I've only focused on the biology side, but I'm sure in terms of technology, quantum computers and stuff, probably. I'm not really sure though.
Eric, I'm wondering, I see your non-faculty mentor, Professor Khalil Ramadi. Who is he and how did you get in touch?
He's a bioengineering professor at NYU. I attended one of his programs, and during that program, we were doing something very similar to this. We were basically coming up with innovations in technology to address current health problems or health issues. And I thought he would be a really good avenue of research into, because I think he has worked on a lot of nanoparticles before. And during my time discussing with him, he was the one that introduced me to nanotherm and a bunch of other trials, and helped simplify a lot of the complex explanations within the medical journals.
Okay, Ark, thank you.
All right.